Thank you very much, Mr. Magwood. Bill, it's really great to be here in this webinar with you. Thank you for inviting me. This is the second time we are talking on things we should do in the recovery after the COVID-19 and focusing now on jobs. And that's also why it's so great that we have today are publishing our new report specifically on jobs, and it is now today found on our website. So I will just go through a few items in addition to the excellent introduction that Sama did on your policy brief. And I hope you will stay here now and listen and not go looking to the report immediately. I also wanted to thank specifically for these webinars, these policy briefs, and also for the possibility to cooperate with NEA, because this is very important times when we see that everything around us is getting more and more challenging, more and more complex, and increasingly nearly every day. And that's why international organization has to take the leadership and to overcome some of the institutional barriers, to work together and make it possible to deliver some change and a stronger and better tomorrow. And from our perspective, the NEA policy briefs emphasize 4 crucial points. Firstly, that nuclear energy produces multiple benefits and offers a solution to some of the challenges created by the pandemic. Secondly, that nuclear power plants deliver value for money to energy consumers, whilst also helping to ensure that society decarbonize and on time and sustainably. And thirdly, that energy security is essential for dealing with an event such as a pandemic. Nuclear energy serves as a pillar of stability during uncertain times. And fourthly, and most relevant to today's discussion, that investing in nuclear infrastructure is proven to create a large number of high value and highly skilled jobs. So next slide, please. As we see, and we have also learned about before in the last NEA webinar, nuclear brings important economic benefits, especially in the context of decarbonization. Nuclear new build is a highly cost-effective option in many key growth markets, such as China, as it's pictured here, as Asia and Africa generally. And with the publication of the new NEA report on how to reduce the costs of nuclear electricity, we know that nothing fundamentally is preventing Western nuclear countries from also achieving these low costs, especially if they commit to serious build and innovate on financing. However, it is a part of global efforts to address climate change that the real economic value of nuclear energy becomes undeniable. As countries ratchet down emissions limits, as they really would like to tip the curves, it becomes more and more costly to maintain a secure supply of energy. But by including some dispatchable low carbon electricity sources in the mix, these costs can be reduced greatly. As shown in the bottom figure, nuclear stands out in terms of its technical maturity, scalability, and potential for use in a range of non-power applications. So now on to a quick summary of the findings of this new World Nuclear Association report. And Sama made an excellent description of the policy paper and all the findings, and also about the facts already. So there is some few things only for me to add now. And you know that most of the employment estimates in the energy sector are just at a point in time. That is, they provide a snapshot rather than a view over the entire plant lifetime. But our report, however, uses existing studies to estimate employment in a steady state for both nuclear and wind energy. And here we are using the French nuclear sector and the US wind sector. They've been chosen because they partly have all the available employment data, and also because they we assume, and it is assumed, that their supply chains are largely domestically located. And the schematic chart on the left, isn't that on the right, represents the overall employment contours for a 1 gigawatt nuclear facility and equivalent wind capacity over an 80-year period. The employment profile at the nuclear plant is much smoother and requiring, to the left it is of course, requiring a smaller peak of jobs during construction, but also employing more during operation. Jobs in nuclear operations especially tend to be long-term and will support workers who live in the communities near the plants. The chart on the right crunches the numbers from a range of public available reports to see how many people are employed, both directly in construction and also operation, but also indirectly through the wider supply chain to generate 1,000 terawatt hours per year within the two countries, the French and the US. This shows that the nuclear industry provides about 25% more employment per unit of electricity in France, more than the wind does in the US. We think this could be a general conclusion, that the nuclear industry employs more than the wind industry. And, but this is, of course, very much depending on the supply chain. If the supply chain is within the countries, or if you are importing everything. So it's not a large difference between these two low carbon energy sources when it only comes to looking at the number of the jobs over a 8-year period. Next slide, please. But not only does nuclear employ a little bit more people than wind, it will create more value in the wider economy. And how can this be true? And I think Sama told a lot about this already. But firstly, the average nuclear sector pay rate tends to exceed that of other energy technologies by a significant margin. The chart on the left provides pay trends for a range of US energy industries, which shows nuclear workers earning an additional $20,000 per year compared to workers in other energy industries. Paying workers more money means their families have higher disposable income to spend on goods and services throughout the community and more widely. Secondly, a fully fledged nuclear industry would generate value that is easily detectable at the macroeconomic level. The chart on the right shows how the European nuclear industry contributes to economic activity in the region worth €500 billion each year. In addition to the jobs and high household incomes, revenues generated through taxation reach the value of €124 billion, while the sector also generated a trade surplus of almost €20 billion. These figures are for a largely mature industry, where little new build is currently underway. However, we can readily imagine that just how much additional value would be created around the world if countries committed to accelerate the implementation of the 108 reactors which are already planned by governments, and ensuring the long-term operation of the 290 reactors which have been operational for over 30 years. These are shovel-ready projects, and we hopefully head into the COVID recovery phase. This is clear and urgent priority to make these investments. Next slide, please. In summary, our research shows that nuclear provides more employment per unit of electricity than wind power. These jobs will be generally better paid, better quality than those in other energy technologies. In fact, the nuclear industry acts as a jobs multiplier. Every direct job in the nuclear industry sustains 4 other jobs in the wider economy. From European report and from an American report, the number 4 is also valid. But I can believe that in many countries that this number could even be 7. In some developing countries, I believe this value can be much larger, but already it's an impressive multiplier effect of 4. Even despite the employment benefit, nuclear maintains an economic advantage over intermittent renewables for final energy supply in a decarbonized mix, as it requires less spending on system costs. Nuclear energy as major infrastructure development attracts investment that drives sustained, long-term, local and national economic growth. And given all the above, we call on governments around the world to duly consider nuclear and its socio-economic, environmental and public health benefits in an energy transition plan, and to enact policies that ensure the realization of the many benefits of nuclear energy. Thank you. I'm happy to get some questions.